Imagine for a moment a world plunged into darkness and chaos by the catastrophic aftermath of a nuclear war. A world where the very air we breathe is laced with invisible, deadly particles, and where the land that once nourished us is now a barren wasteland. In today's geopolitically volatile landscape, the specter of nuclear warfare looms large. The scale of destruction that a nuclear war could unleash is unprecedented, far surpassing the damage wrought by conventional warfare. Entire cities could be reduced to rubble in the blink of an eye, and the death toll could run into millions. But the horrors of nuclear warfare don't end with the initial blast. The fallout, a deadly cocktail of radioactive particles, would be carried by winds for thousands of miles, contaminating everything in its path. This fallout could linger for weeks, months, or even years, rendering large swaths of land uninhabitable and poisoning food and water supplies. Surviving in such a scenario is a daunting challenge. The immediate aftermath would be a battle against time, seeking shelter from the fallout, securing clean water and food, and treating injuries. But the long-term survival would be a test of endurance, as we adapt to a radically changed world, where basic necessities are scarce, and every day is a struggle for survival. The potential for nuclear war is not just a relic of the Cold War era. With over 13,000 nuclear weapons in existence today, the threat is as real as it ever was, and it's not just state actors we need to worry about. Non-state actors like terrorist groups could potentially get their hands on nuclear material and use it to wreak havoc. The threat of nuclear war is real and demands our attention. It's a threat that we can't afford to ignore, for the consequences of unpreparedness could be dire. It's time to prepare. Not out of fear, but out of a sober understanding of the risks we face. It's time to equip ourselves with the knowledge and tools necessary to survive and thrive in a post-nuclear world. Because when it comes to nuclear warfare, the only victory is survival. Surviving a nuclear war starts with having the right essentials in place. It's not just about enduring the initial blast, it's about outlasting the aftermath, and that requires careful planning and preparation. First and foremost, we have iodine tablets. In a nuclear event, radioactive iodine can be released into the atmosphere, and if inhaled or ingested, can harm your thyroid. Iodine tablets work by saturating your thyroid with stable iodine, preventing the absorption of radioactive iodine. It's an inexpensive yet potentially life-saving addition to your survival kit. Next, let's talk about clothing. Durable, long-lasting clothing is a must. Think about materials that can withstand harsh conditions and protect you from the elements. A good quality radiation suit can also be a lifesaver, providing a barrier against radioactive particles. Now, on to food. Non-perishable items are key here. Canned goods, dry mixes, and other staples that don't require refrigeration can sustain you for long periods. But don't just stockpile any canned goods. Consider the nutritional value of the food you're storing. Beans, whole grains, canned meats, fruits, and vegetables can provide a balanced diet even in dire circumstances. Water is a non-negotiable necessity. While it's important to store bottled water, having purification tablets or a reliable purification system is just as critical. Remember, in a nuclear fallout situation, water sources can become contaminated. Finally, don't forget basic tools and equipment. A multi-tool, a reliable source of light, a battery or crank-powered radio for news updates, and a sturdy backpack to carry your supplies are all essential. Survival, in essence, is about resilience and resourcefulness. And while we certainly hope you never have to face a nuclear event, being prepared can give you a fighting chance. Remember, the right supplies can mean the difference between life and death. True protection from radiation comes from creating a safe haven, a fallout shelter. In the midst of a nuclear fallout, your home may not be enough to protect you from the harmful effects of radiation. That's where a makeshift fallout shelter comes in. It's a temporary solution, yes, but one that can drastically increase your chances of survival. The first step in building a shelter is choosing the right location. You want to pick a spot that's as far below the ground as possible, like a basement or a dugout. The more earth between you and the fallout, the better. Now, let's talk about materials. You're going to want to use heavy, dense materials to construct your shelter. We're talking about things like bricks, concrete, or even packed earth. These materials are excellent at absorbing radiation and can drastically reduce your exposure. Remember, this isn't about building a 5-star hotel. It's about survival. Your shelter needs to be compact but large enough to house you and your loved ones comfortably. You'll want to stock it with essential supplies like food, water, and medical kits. Air circulation is another crucial factor to consider. You'll need a ventilation system to make sure fresh air can get in and carbon dioxide can get out. This could be as simple as 2 pipes, one for air intake, the other for exhaust. And finally, you'll need to think about shielding. The more layers between you and the fallout, the better. That's why it's a good idea to cover your shelter with additional layers of earth, if you can. Building a fallout shelter isn't a task to be taken lightly. It requires careful planning and preparation, but it's a task that could save your life in the event of a nuclear fallout. So remember, choose a good location, use dense materials, ensure proper ventilation, and add as much shielding as possible. With these steps, you'll be well on your way to creating a safe haven in a nuclear event. A well-prepared shelter can be your sanctuary in a nuclear fallout. Water and food are life. In a nuclear fallout, securing them becomes a top priority. The harsh reality is that traditional sources of water and food will likely be contaminated. So how do we overcome this challenge? Firstly, let's tackle water. You need a strategy to purify and store it. Rainwater, for instance, can be a lifesaver, but it's not as simple as catching it in a bucket. You need to consider the fallout particles in the air. A simple yet effective method is to collect rainwater after it has been falling for about 30 minutes. This allows the rain to wash away most of the fallout particles from the atmosphere. And remember, always boil or filter collected water before drinking. Next comes storage. Storing water in clean, airtight containers is essential. Plastic bottles, thoroughly cleaned, can be a good option. And don't forget to store enough. A good rule of thumb is to store at least 1 gallon of water per person per day and plan for a minimum of 2 weeks. Now let's talk about food. Ideally, you want to store foods that are non-perishable and can withstand contamination. Canned goods, dried foods, and meals ready to eat, known as MREs, are all solid choices. You'll also need a way to cook these foods, so a portable stove can come in handy. And remember, always use a radiation detector before preparing or eating any food. Another strategy is to create a fallout garden. This is an indoor garden protected from radiation. It's not a quick solution, but it can provide fresh produce over the long term. Lastly, don't forget to store essential vitamins and supplements. These can help supplement your diet, especially if it becomes limited. Ensuring water and food security is crucial for your survival. Keep these strategies in mind, and remember, preparation is key to overcoming the challenges of a nuclear fallout. Medical emergencies are inevitable in a nuclear fallout. Are you prepared to handle them? In the aftermath of a nuclear event, the ability to address medical emergencies becomes a vital survival skill. The fallout radiation can lead to a variety of health issues such as radiation sickness, burns, injuries from the blast, and longer-term illnesses due to prolonged radiation exposure. Firstly, let's talk about the supplies you'll need. A comprehensive first aid kit is essential. This should include items like bandages, antiseptic wipes, tweezers, medical tape, and a digital thermometer. But given the unique challenges of a nuclear event, you'll also need to add a few more items to your kit. Potassium iodide tablets can help protect your thyroid from radiation, while burn creams and dressings are necessary for treating radiation burns. Now, having the right supplies is one thing, but knowing how to use them is another. Basic first aid knowledge is crucial. You should know how to clean and dress a wound, how to treat burns, and how to recognize and respond to signs of radiation sickness. Symptoms can include nausea, weakness, hair loss, skin burns, and in severe cases, seizures and even death. In addition to addressing immediate health concerns, it's also important to consider long-term health management. Chronic diseases and regular medication needs don't just disappear in a crisis. If you or a family member relies on prescription medication, having a stockpile can be a lifesaver. It's also worth noting that mental health is just as important as physical health. The stress and trauma associated with a nuclear event can lead to severe mental health issues. Coping mechanisms, stress relief exercises, and even simple distractions like books or games can play a significant role in maintaining mental well-being. Remember, in a nuclear fallout, medical professionals might not be readily available, and hospitals may be overwhelmed or inaccessible. Your ability to handle medical emergencies could be the difference between life and death. Being prepared medically can save lives, including yours. In a post-nuclear world, communication systems may fail, but staying informed is vital for survival. Picture this: the internet's down, your cell phone's a brick, and television broadcasts are a thing of the past. How do you stay connected? How do you reach out for help or get critical updates about the outside world? In the face of such adversity, we turn to the tried and true ham radios. These radios are a powerful tool for long-distance communication, even in the harshest of environments. They operate on a variety of frequencies and can be used to send and receive messages over hundreds, even thousands of miles. And the best part? They don't rely on any external infrastructure. As long as you have a power source, you're good to go. But let's not stop there. Consider also investing in a hand crank or solar-powered radio. These can be used to receive emergency broadcasts, providing potentially life-saving updates about weather conditions, potential safe zones, or even rescue operations. Next, let's talk about signaling devices. Flares, mirrors, and whistles can be used to attract attention and signal for help. If you're stranded or in danger, these simple tools could mean the difference between being found or being forgotten. And remember, communication isn't just about talking, it's about listening too. Keep an ear out for any signs of life or activity. Gunshots, engine noises, even the sound of a distant conversation could indicate the presence of other survivors. Last but not least, don't forget the power of good old-fashioned written communication. Leaving notes or symbols can be an effective way to communicate with others, especially if you're on the move. Staying connected can be your lifeline in a post-nuclear world. So, invest in a ham radio, a hand-cranked or solar-powered radio, and some simple signaling devices. Keep your ears open and don't underestimate the power of a pen and paper. In the face of nuclear fallout, these tools and strategies could be your best chance at staying connected, staying informed, and ultimately, staying alive.